History is often told through the eyes of conquerors. But what about the voices that stood in defiance and refused to be silenced, even in the face of overwhelming odds? The Native American leaders of the past weren't just warriors or tacticians. They were guardians of entire ways of life, protectors of traditions that had thrived for thousands of years before colonization swept the continent. In this video, we will unveil the stories of the fiercest Native American warriors, their victories, sacrifices, and the enduring impact they left on a world that often tried to forget them. Born around 1840 near the Black Hills of present-day South Dakota, Crazy Horse emerged as a formidable leader of the Oglokota Sioux. From a young age, he was distinguished by his light complexion and curly hair, earning him the childhood nickname Curly. As he matured, his exceptional bravery and skill in battle led him to adopt the name Fashonka Witko, meaning his horse is crazy. Crazy Horse's leadership was pivotal during the Great Sioux War of 1876 to 1877. He played a significant role in the Battle of the Rosebud on June 17, 1876, where his strategic acumen helped repel General George Crook's forces. This victory was crucial in delaying U.S. military advancements, setting the stage for subsequent confrontations. A week later, on June 25, 1876, Crazy Horse's tactical brilliance shone during the Battle of the Little Bighorn. He led a coalition of Lakota, Northern Cheyenne, and Arapaho warriors. He orchestrated a devastating defeat against Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer's 7th Cavalry. This encounter, often referred to as Custer's Last Stand, resulted in the annihilation of Custer and over 260 of his men, marking a significant, albeit temporary, victory for the Native American force. Despite these triumphs, relentless U.S. military campaigns and dwindling resources pressured many Native leaders to surrender. On May 5, 1877, Crazy Horse and his followers surrendered at Fort Robinson in Nebraska. Tensions remained high, and on September 5, 1877, during a scuffle to prevent his confinement, Crazy Horse was stabbed to death by a soldier. His death marked the end of a fierce resistance. Born in June 1829, in what is now Arizona, Geronimo, or Goyahweh, which means the one who yawns, became a prominent leader of the Badonkohe Band of the Chiricahua Apache. His deep-seated animosity towards Mexican and American settlers stemmed from a tragic incident in 1851, when Mexican soldiers attacked his camp, killing his mother, wife, and 3 children. This personal loss ignited a relentless pursuit of vengeance and defense of his people's homeland. Geronimo was renowned for his guerrilla warfare tactics, leading numerous raids across southwest and northern Mexico. His intimate knowledge of the rugged terrain allowed him to evade capture repeatedly, frustrating both Mexican and U.S. military forces. His resistance became emblematic of Native American defiance against encroachment and subjugation. In 1886, after decades of resistance, Geronimo and his small band of followers were pursued by thousands of U.S. and Mexican troops. Recognizing the futility of continued resistance and concern for his people's welfare, he surrendered to General Nelson Miles on September 4, 1886, at Skeleton Canyon in Arizona. This surrender marked the end of the Apache Wars, and Geronimo was transported to various military installations as a prisoner of war. Geronimo later adapted to life in captivity, even participating in public events such as the 1904 World's Fair in St. Louis and President Theodore Roosevelt's 1905 inaugural parade. Despite his involvement in these events, he remained a prisoner of war until his death. On February 17, 1909, Geronimo died from pneumonia at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Tatanka Ayotake, known as Sitting Bull, was born around 1831 near the Grand River in present-day South Dakota. From a young age, he exhibited strong leadership and spiritual insight, qualities defining his role as a chief and holy man of the Hunkpapa Lakota Sioux. His commitment to preserving his people's traditional way of life positioned him as a central figure in the resistance against U.S. government policies. Sitting Bull's leadership was instrumental during the Great Sioux War of 1876. In June of that year, he conducted a Sundance ceremony, during which he reportedly had a vision of soldiers falling into his camp like grasshoppers. This vision was interpreted as prophecy of a significant victory over U.S. forces. Shortly thereafter, on June 25, 1876, the combined forces of the Lakota, Northern Cheyenne, and Arapaho achieved a monumental victory at the Battle of the Little Big Horn, decisively defeating Lieutenant Colonel George Custer's 7th Cavalry. Following this victory, increased military pressure forced Sitting Bull and his followers to seek refuge in Canada in 1877. They remained there for several years, but the scarcity of resources and harsh conditions eventually compelled them to return to the United States. In 1881, Sitting Bull surrendered to U.S. authorities. He was held as a prisoner of war before being assigned to the Standing Rock Agency in present-day North Dakota. In 1890, as the ghost dance movement gained momentum among Native American tribes, Sitting Bull was then perceived by authorities as a potential catalyst for unrest. On December 15, 1890, Indian police were dispatched to arrest him at his residence on the Standing Rock Reservation. During the confrontation, a brief battle ensued. Sitting Bull was fatally shot and died. Born in 1822 near the Platte River in present-day Nebraska, Red Cloud became a chief of the Oglala Lakota Sioux. Conflicts with rival tribes and encroaching settlers marked his early years. These experiences honed his leadership and combat skills. By the 1860s, Red Cloud had become a central figure in his people's resistance against U.S. expansion into the northern plains. The discovery of gold in Montana led to an influx of miners traveling through the Bozeman Trail, which cut through the heart of Lakota hunting grounds. Determined to protect his people's territory, Red Cloud orchestrated strategic attacks against U.S. military forts along the trail. This period, known as Red Cloud's War in 1866 to 1868, showcased his tactical prowess and unwavering commitment to his people's sovereignty. One of the most notable events during this conflict was the Fetterman Fight on December 21, 1866. Red Cloud's warriors lured a detachment of 81 U.S. soldiers, led by Captain William J. Fetterman, into an ambush near Fort Phil Kearny. The entire unit was annihilated, marking one of the U.S. Army's worst defeats in the Indian Wars. This victory underscored Red Cloud's effectiveness as a military strategist. The sustained resistance led by Red Cloud compelled the U.S. government to reconsider its approach. In 1868, the Fort Laramie Treaty was signed, resulting in the abandonment of U.S. forts along the Bozeman Trail and the recognition of the Black Hills as part of the Great Sioux Reservation. This treaty marked a rare instance where the U.S. conceded to Native American demands. Despite this diplomatic victory, the discovery of gold in the Black Hills in the mid-1870s reignited tension. Red Cloud traveled to Washington, D.C. to advocate for his people's rights, but faced increasing pressure from the U.S. government. In his later years, he continued to serve as a spokesperson for his people, striving to navigate the challenges posed by encroaching settlers and changing policy. Red Cloud passed away on December 10, 1909, at the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. Born around 1768 in present-day Ohio, Tecumseh emerged as a prominent leader of the Shawnee people. From a young age, he witnessed the relentless encroachment of settlers on Native American lands, fueling his resolve to resist displacement. Tecumseh envisioned a united confederation of tribes to oppose further losing their territories and way of life. In the early 19th century, Tecumseh, alongside his brother Tenskwatawa, known as the Prophet, established Prophetstown near the Tippecanoe River. This settlement became a cultural and political hub for the Confederation, attracting warriors and leaders from various tribes. Tecumseh's eloquence and charisma were instrumental in rallying support for his cause, emphasizing the need for unity among Native American nations. Tensions escalated as U.S. authorities grew wary of Tecumseh's growing influence. On November 7, 1811, while Tecumseh was away seeking further alliances, U.S. forces led by Governor William Henry Harrison attacked Prophetstown in the Battle of Tippecanoe. Although the battle was indecisive, it affected the Confederation's morale and momentum. Undeterred, Tecumseh allied with the British during the War of 1812, viewing them as potential partners against American expansion. He played a crucial role in several engagements, including the capture of Fort Detroit in August 1812, where his presence and reputation contributed to the fort's swift surrender without bloodshed. Tecumseh's commitment to his cause remained steadfast until his death on October 5, 1813. He fought in the Battle of the Thames near present-day Chatham, Ontario. During the battle, Tecumseh was killed, and with his death, the dream of a unified Native American Confederation died. Born Makataimishi around 1767 in the village of Sokanook, located in present-day Illinois, Black Hawk rose to prominence as a war leader of the Sauk tribe. At an early age, he distinguished himself in battle, leading successful raids against rival tribes and later against encroaching American settlers. His leadership was characterized by a steadfast commitment to defending his people's homeland along the Rock River. In 1804, a controversial treaty ceding Sauk and Fox lands east of the Mississippi River to the United States was signed. Black Hawk and many of his people rejected the legitimacy of this treaty as a minority faction signed it without broader tribal consent. Tensions simmered for years, resulting in Black Hawk's decision to lead his band across the Mississippi in 1832, seeking to reclaim their ancestral lands. This movement sparked the Black Hawk War of 1832. Despite initial attempts to avoid conflict ensued between Black Hawk's band and U.S. militia forces. One notable encounter was the Battle of Stillman's Run on May 14, 1832, where Black Hawk's warriors repelled a larger militia force, showcasing Black Hawk's tactical skill and the determination of his warriors. This early victory, however, was short-lived as U.S. forces quickly regrouped, bringing in reinforcements that included militia volunteers and regular Army units under General Henry Atkinson. As the war progressed, Black Hawk and his followers faced relentless pursuit. The U.S. forces, outnumbering and outgunning the Sauk warriors, capitalized on superior firepower and logistics. Black Hawk's band, which included women, children, and the elderly, was forced into a desperate retreat through hostile territory. Starvation, exhaustion, and skirmishes took a devastating toll on his people. The conflict reached its tragic climax at the Battle of Bad Axe in August 1832, near the Mississippi River in present-day Wisconsin. Attempting to cross the river and escape into Iowa, Black Hawk's band was intercepted by U.S. forces and militia. The ensuing massacre left hundreds of Sauk and Fox dead, many of them non-combatants. The survivors were either captured or scattered, marking a grim end to Black Hawk's resistance. Following the defeat, Black Hawk surrendered to U.S. forces. He was imprisoned briefly and then transferred to Fort Monroe in Virginia, where he met with President Andrew Jackson. Despite his status as a prisoner, Black Hawk was treated with a mix of respect and curiosity. His dignified demeanor and eloquent speeches captivated many. In 1833, Black Hawk was released and allowed to return to his people, who had been relocated to Iowa. He lived in relative obscurity for the remainder of his life, but remained a respected elder and storyteller. In 1833, he dictated his autobiography, Life of Black Hawk, the first Native American autobiography published in the United States. The book offered a rare glimpse into the struggles of indigenous people during a time of immense upheaval. Black Hawk died on October 3, 1838, in what is now Davis County, Iowa. His legacy as a fierce protector of his people and their land lives showcases the resilience and courage of Native American tribes in the face of overwhelming odds. Born around 1720 along the Detroit River, Pontiac, known in his village as Obwandiag, became a formidable Ottawa war chief. His early life remains obscure, but he likely spent his formative years in the Great Lakes region, becoming deeply familiar with the land and its people. By the mid-18th century, Pontiac had established himself as a prominent leader in Ottawa, renowned for his strategic acumen and charismatic presence. During the French and Indian War, 1754 to 1763, Pontiac allied with the French against British forces, recognizing the threat that British expansion posed to indigenous territory. However, the British victory and subsequent policies, such as restricting trade and encroaching on native lands, fueled widespread discontent among the tribe. In response, Pontiac orchestrated a widespread alliance of various tribes, aiming to resist British domination and preserve their ancestral lands. In 1763, Pontiac led a coordinated assault against British forts and settlements, which came to be known as Pontiac's War. One of the most significant events was the siege of Fort Detroit, where Pontiac's forces besieged the fort for several months. Although the siege ultimately did not succeed, it demonstrated the potential of unified indigenous resistance. Throughout the conflict, Pontiac's leadership inspired numerous tribes to join the cause, capturing several British forts and causing considerable disruption to British colonial plans. Despite initial successes, the alliance began to wane due to logistical challenges and internal divisions. By 1764, British forces initiated diplomatic efforts to quell the uprising, and many tribes sought peace. Pontiac eventually agreed to a formal peace in 1766, marking the end of large-scale hostilities. However, his resistance had a lasting impact, prompting the British to issue the Royal Proclamation of 1763, which aimed to stabilize relations by limiting colonial expansion westward, though enforcement was inconsistent. Tragically, Pontiac's life came to an end on April 20th, 1769, when he was assassinated near the Mississippi River in what is now Cahokia, Illinois. His death was reportedly the result of a personal vendetta. Born around 1805 in the Chiricahua Apache territory, Cochise was a name that would strike fear and command respect across the rugged lands of the American Southwest. His name, having the quality of oak, symbolized his strength and resilience. He rose to prominence as a leader of the Chiricahua Apache, known for his unyielding defense of his people's land and freedom. For decades, Cochise fought tirelessly to preserve the autonomy of his tribe amidst growing encroachment by settlers and U.S. military forces. The pivotal moment in Cochise's life came in 1861, during the infamous Bascom affair. An Apache group had raided a nearby ranch, and a young boy was abducted. Cochise, though uninvolved, was accused of the crime. Under a flag of truce, he agreed to meet with Lieutenant George Bascom to resolve the issue. However, the meeting turned into a trap. Cochise was seized, though he managed a dramatic escape by slashing through a tense canvas and fleeing. This betrayal shattered any chance of peace and sparked a brutal conflict that would last over a decade. Cochise led his people through relentless guerrilla warfare, expertly navigating the harsh mountains and deserts of the Southwest. His warriors struck military outposts and settlements with precision, vanishing into the wilderness before retaliation could follow. His deep knowledge of the land made him nearly impossible to catch, earning him a reputation as one of the most formidable Native American warriors of his time. Despite its resources, the U.S. military struggled to match Cochise's strategic brilliance. By 1871, the toll of war was immense on both sides. Understanding the devastating impact the prolonged conflict had on his people, Cochise began exploring peace. General Oliver Howard initiated negotiations, but Tom Jeffords, a former scout and Cochise's trusted friend, played a crucial role. The talks happened in 1872, and an agreement was reached to establish a reservation in the Chiricahua Mountains. This compromise allowed Cochise's people to remain on their ancestral lands. Cochise's life ended peacefully in 1874 on the reservation he fought to secure. He was buried in a hidden location in the Dragoon Mountains. His resting place remains a mystery. Born around 1845 near Wichita Falls, Texas, Quanah Parker was the son of Petanocona, a Comanche chief, and Cynthia Ann Parker, a white woman who had been captured by the Comanche as a child and fully assimilated into the tribe. Quanah's mixed heritage positioned him uniquely within both Native American and settler societies, a duality that would define his leadership and legacy. As a young man, Quanah distinguished himself as a formidable warrior, leading the Quahadi band of the Comanche. He fiercely resisted the encroachment of settlers and the U.S. military into Comanche territory. One of the most notable conflicts during this period was the Red River War from 1874 to 1875, a series of battles aimed at forcibly relocating the Southern Plains tribes to reservations. During engagements such as the Second Battle of Adobe Walls, Quanah's leadership showcased his tactical acumen and determination. Despite their resilience, relentless pressure from U.S. forces and the depletion of buffalo herds, a primary food source, led to the Quahadis' eventual surrender. In 1875, Quanah led his people to Fort Sill in present-day Oklahoma, marking the end of the Comanches' nomadic resistance. Knowing he was fighting a lost battle, Quanah Parker transitioned into a new role as a leader within the reservation system. His ability to adapt and negotiate between the Comanche way of life and the demands of the U.S. government set him apart. At Fort Sill, Quanah became the principal chief of the Comanche, despite the tribe's traditional lack of a singular leader. His leadership and diplomacy helped ease the transition for his people during this difficult time. Quanah's mixed heritage proved to be both a burden and an asset. Fluent in both the Comanche language and English, he acted as a bridge between two worlds. He advocated for his people's rights, including securing compensation for lands taken by the U.S. government and improving living conditions on the reservation. Quanah also encouraged the Comanche to adopt certain aspects of European American life, such as ranching, while maintaining their cultural tradition. He became a prosperous rancher, owning a substantial herd of cattle and employing both Comanche and white cowboys. Quanah also fought tirelessly to preserve his family's legacy. He successfully lobbied for the return of his mother, Cynthia Ann Parker, whose remains were to be buried beside his father, Pita Nokona. He passed away on February 23, 1911, at the Star House near Cache, Oklahoma, and was buried with great honor at Fort Sill. Many of these individuals carried the weight of their communities on their shoulders, navigating the brutal reality of dispossession and betrayal. They confronted armies with advanced weapons, governments bent on erasure, and the crushing tide of broken treaties. Yet, their stories are far from tales of defeat. Their legacies echo far beyond the plains and mountains they called home. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more updates. See you in the next video.